Good morning. American universities and colleges are in a fiscal crisis, and many universities now are closing campuses and shutting down departments. There are too few American students to go around. But for our top universities, they had, until recently, managed to make a lot of money from international students, especially students from China. Now that cash cow is going away too. Chinese student enrollment is falling sharply in U.S. schools for lots of reasons. This is from the Los Angeles Times, and a China-based expert is advising U.S. universities that the enrollment numbers they're seeing from China now are probably the highest they'll ever see again. All the reasons for that are summed up right here. It's a perfect one-paragraph summary of the discussions happening in hundreds of thousands of households today across China. It's a conversation with a Chinese parent who had already sent one child over to the U.S. to study and is unsure about what to do for child number 2. She's wondering if an American degree is worth it anymore. The cost of a U.S. degree is immense compared to universities here. It's harder to get a job in the U.S. after graduation, and companies here in China prefer to hire graduates of Chinese universities instead of foreign schools. Previously, studying abroad was considered prestigious. Now it's reversed. Undergraduate education in the U.S. is no longer appealing, and that is now the popular opinion. So for American universities and their towns, this is hitting their finances hard. Chinese students usually pay full tuition, full room and board, and they dump a lot of money into local economies where the students are going to school. The United States runs a large services sector surplus with China, which runs over $32 billion per year. Here are the total exports of services from the U.S. to China at over $46 billion in 2023, and about a third of that was education-related travel and services, which include tuition, books, and living expenses. So this is all a big hit to our national economy, as well as to the finances of schools, if more and more Chinese families decide to keep their kids here or send them somewhere else. So in order to survive, U.S. universities are desperately seeking students from other countries to replace the ones they're losing from China. They're spending more to recruit students from India and Nigeria, for example. And that strategy seems to be working, as universities saw a big spike in students from India, which became the largest country of origin for students, passing China. But now those numbers have flipped back. International enrollments have collapsed year over year. This was locked in even before the news about deep cuts to research funding and travel and visa restrictions. This analysis is not about what might happen, it's what has already happened. The trends that began under the Biden administration through March of 2025 do not yet reflect the recent policy changes from the Trump presidency. And still, U.S. universities saw a drop of 130,000 international students. The author is implying here that these huge drops we saw under Biden are not likely to see a big bounce the other way. So American universities can expect even worse times ahead. That drop of 130,000 students represents a decline of 11% from March of last year to this March. It is remarkable, both in how big the change is and how fast it's happened. Potential revenue loss up to $4 billion. And here we run into the replacement problem. Remember that U.S. universities are trying to find Indian and Nigerian students to replace the Chinese kids who aren't coming anymore. There was a 27.9% drop in Indian students, along with a slight increase of kids from China. Now China is again the top country of origin, but it's addition by subtraction in this case. India is off a cliff with about 99,000 fewer Indians coming over. Nigeria is the top African country, and they were the second biggest percentage decline, off 16% since last year. Here is another major challenge for universities who are trying to recruit students from India, or Africa to replace Chinese. The money isn't the same. Chinese families pay a lot more for U.S. educations compared to families elsewhere. These charts tell that story. This is for undergraduate study per year, prices paid by students from India, China, and Nigeria. Chinese students are clustered in university programs costing $38,000 per year up to $62,000 per year. In the case of India, shift everything down by over $20,000. Those students cluster in programs costing $10,000 per year up to $40,000. Two takeaways here then. Indian students are attending lower cost programs and their average upper limit is the same as the Chinese lower tier spending. U.S. schools then industry-wide need 2 Indian students to replace a single Chinese. The numbers for Nigerian students are even worse. The U.S. university system needs to find 3 Nigerians for every Chinese student who stays home. And looking at these tables another way, we can make some guesses about the composition of university classes. In a school with a lot of Nigerian and Indian students, you won't find many Chinese studying there. And in departments with high numbers of Chinese students, there will be fewer students from India and very few from Nigeria. And comments like this one are common in the discussion sections of these news articles, like this one here from the Wall Street Journal. There are dozens of comments just like this one. Chinese kids can be easily replaced, the thinking goes. Just look at this chart here that shows how many kids from India are coming over. But this is old news, and now the Indian students aren't coming either. And it was misleading anyway. There were never enough Indians to go around either, especially if they pay just half what Chinese families do. This is the Detien waterfall, which is at the border of Vietnam. It's in Guangxi province. Be good.
No man comes to the Father but by me. Everyone who hears these words of Jesus and acts on them is like a wise man who built his house on a rock. And the rain fell, and the floods came, and the winds blew, and yet the house did not fall, for it was founded on the rock.